Hello and welcome to Cupcake Addiction's Totoro cake pop tutorial, where I'll be showing you how to make this gorgeous little Totoro cake pop and our little Soot Sprite. Tools and equipment that we will be using today: I'm resting my completed pops in a polystyrene block. I've got a pair of scissors, 2 Ziploc bags and a little piece of either greaseproof or wax paper. I've got a couple of cake pop balls. I've got some Lollypop sticks and some toothpicks. I've got some black candy melts, some grey candy melts. Now the grey today, I've used 50% white and 50% black to get that grey colour. I've got some of our black candy melt sprinkles. Now I do have a whole tutorial showing you how to make these sprinkles, but it is basically just grated, hardened black candy melt. I've got some melted white chocolate, a few of our little pre-prepared decorations, as well as some Wilton Candy Eyes there, a couple of unmelted white chocolate melts, a knife and 2 spoons. So let's get started. Now the first thing we're going to do is make our little Soot Sprite. He is super easy, so we'll get him done and out of the way first, and then we'll move on to Totoro. So you want to take your cake pop ball. If you don't have a great recipe for getting your cake pop balls to this stage ready to dip and decorate, I will leave a link in the description box below to our cake pop ball recipe. And this one has been refrigerated for about 15 minutes, so it's really, really nice and firm. So I'm going to take my Lollypop stick and I'm just going to dip it in, and while I'm dipping it in, I'm just giving those candy melts just a little bit of a stir so that they're nice and fluid for when it comes to dipping our cake pop ball. And turning your ball upside down, insert your cake pop stick. So that can go either just off to the side or into the fridge to dry, and you want to make sure that that seal is really, really nice and firm. We'll pop it off to the side. Now to get started on our little Totoro decorations, you're going to take some of those candy melts in one of those Ziploc bags and just spoon in a little bit to make some of his little whiskers. So you just want to push down your candy melts into the corner of the bag. We're going to snip off just a really, really tiny little corner. You want that to be quite fine, and that's basically just fashioned it into a little bit of a piping bag for us. And we're just going to pipe 6 or maybe 8, so we're only going to use 6 whiskers, but maybe pipe 8 just in case a couple of them get broken. And it's just as easy as piping just 6 or 8 little lines. Don't make these ones too thin. You don't want them to be too thick because they are whiskers. Those first 2, one of them's obviously not going to work, but that second one is a little bit too thin. If you pipe them too thin, you're going to have a nightmare of a time getting them onto your Totoro. Try to make them roughly the same length. So we've got a few extras than what we need there. That seal there is really well set now, so it's time to dip. Now, as always with candy melts, I do like to give them a really nice little stir. Candy melts are quite thick to work with, and I normally add a little bit of kofa, which is a vegetable shortening. You can also use Crisco if you're in the US. Otherwise, just any vegetable shortening that's going to set hard. So when you melt it, it comes down quite soft, quite liquid, but when it comes back to a set temperature, it is hard. Now, this is a really, really easy cake pop, as I mentioned. I am just going to dip my little Soot Spirit ball there. Make sure that that candy melt meets all the way up with that chocolate seal that we've made, and give it a quick couple of taps. Now, the other thing you want to do with these is just clean up around the bottom. So just run your finger around the bottom and just make sure that you're getting rid of any excess candy melt that might be there. And you want to work quite quickly here while that candy melt's still nice and wet. Don't worry if you don't have a perfect ball. There's a lot of room for error in these ones. So you want to take those 2 eyes and just pop them on the front. 1 and 2. And then you're just going to take your candy sprinkles and just sprinkle them on. This is why you want to do it while this is wet. It is going to make a little bit of a mess, but what's cooking if you can't make a bit of mess? But you want to make sure that that candy melt's still nice and wet when you do this so that the candy melt sprinkles have something to stick to. All right, so there you have your completed and really, really easy little Soot Spirit Totoro cake pop. We'll pop him in the polystyrene block. We'll have a little bit of a tidy up and we'll come back to get on to Totoro. All right, so our Soot Sprites are done, and now it's time to get going on the main character, Totoro. So I've got my cake pop ball. I've got one pre-prepared and pre-refrigerated here, but I want to show you how I get this shape. So for this shape, I'm just taking a regular ball and I'm just going to rock it in the palm of my hands a little to kind of make it almost like a bit of a teardrop shape. So a little bit fatter at the bottom than it is at the top. And just push the top down a little bit so that it's a little bit flat on the top. That's where his little ears are going to go. So just something like that, and that's going to go into the refrigerator for about 10 or 15 minutes so that it's really, really nice and firm. Now, as I mentioned, I've got my one here, which has already been refrigerated. So to save time, that one's ready to go. We're going to take our Lollypop stick, give those candy melts a little bit of a stir, dip it onto the end of the Lollypop stick, and we want to push that Lollypop stick into the base of Totoro there. Now we're going to give that a little bit of time to set. While that one's setting, we also want to take our knife. So I've just got a flat-edged or butter knife, and we're just going to slice on a bit of an angle. So you sort of want this to go down on a bit of an angle towards the Lollypop stick and slice it up towards you. And not too big. This is just going to be so that our candy melt sits nicely on this. You can see there I haven't taken too much off, and I've really just made just a little bit of an angle there. And that is going to house just make a little bit of space for our little Totoro tummy. Popping that one off into the refrigerator to allow that seal to completely set. All right, so while that one's in the refrigerator, we're going to make our other little decorations. So taking that other Ziploc bag and a little bit of our grey candy melt, just spoon it in. Now, there are a few different ways that you can make these decorations. You can do them out of fondant if you like, but I'm just trying to stick to, I guess, things that we've all got at home or that we can all find at our local store. So taking your bag, we're just going to cut off just a very fine point again. And you can use little piping tips and all those sorts of things if you've got a lot of decorating equipment. Taking one of those unmelted melts, we're just going to make this detailing here. So it's going to be as easy as just make sure that the tip of your little makeshift bag is nice and clean, and just put in a couple of almost little, what are they, the tops of triangles. So I like to put 3 in the top row and 4 in the second row. And having had a look on the internet, it looks to me like Totoro only has 2 rows. So leave the bottom half of his belly nice and clear. Pop that one off to the side to dry. And for his ears, I'm also going to do these out of the candy melt. So you just want to fashion just a bit of an ear shape. His ears are quite big in some pictures and quite small in others. So a little bit hard to work out exactly what was what. And I found I ended up making a few extras of these. Some of them I wasn't as happy with. All right, so as I mentioned with those ears, do make a few extras because you're going to want to try and find sort of matching sets with those so that you've got 2 ears that look quite similar. So we'll go and grab our cake pop from the fridge and it'll be time to decorate. So we're back from the fridge, that seal's really nice and set, and our cake pop ball is really nice and firm, so it's time to dip and decorate. Now you do want to work quite quickly here because we've got a lot of little accessories that we need to stick on. As always, I'm going to give my candy melts a good stir so that they're as fluid as they can possibly be before we dip. And we'll take our Totoro. Now you want to have at the ready your little Totoro tummy, your ears and your whiskers. So I find it easiest to have them all sort of separated so that you can just grab them quite quickly. First thing we're going to put on is the tummy, then it's going to be the whiskers and then the ears. So let's get dipping and decorating. In he goes into that little candy melt bath, and just tilt him from side to side to make sure that you've got a nice even dip and it is covering that seal. Give him a few quick taps. Don't tap for too long though because you don't want that chocolate to start drying on you. All right, I'm happy I've got most of that excess off. So like we did with our little Soot Sprite, just run your finger around the bottom and taking your candy melt or your white chocolate melt, just position that on his tummy. Sort of push it in a little bit so that it blends in with that chocolate. Now we want to take our little whiskers, make sure that your skinniest side is out, and you're just going to position them one. Little bit of by eye with the positioning here. 2 and 3, leaving a little bit of space in the middle for his nose. And then on the other side. And then we're going to take those ears. Now I like to have the flat side facing forward of the ears and the nice little pointy tip up the top. And you want to push those just into the actual cake pop itself. So into the chocolate, but you'll feel that it's actually going into the cake pop itself. Just borderline on that drying on me there. So here you've got so far your little Totoro, and he's just ready for final details. So for the finishing touches, we're just going to do a little nose and a couple of eyes. Now I like to use the end of a spare lollipop stick for this. It just gives you a nice sort of, I guess, a nicer size and shape for the eyes. So for the eyes, I'm just going to dip into that little bit of melted white chocolate. Make sure that you don't have too much there. And I'm just going to rest him on the bench so that I've got a nice steady, I guess, area. And you want to put those eyes quite low. So just one dot. It will have like a little point on the end of it. So once they're dried, you can just knock that little point off with the tip of your finger. But don't try to do it when it's wet or it will make a bit of a mess. Space those eyes quite far apart. Now turn that stick over, dip into your black candy melts, and we're going to make the nose. The nose is not quite a round. It's sort of almost a bit of an oval shape. So once again, you don't want too much candy melt on there. But I'm just going to sort of just almost paint a little bit of an oval shape. You can do this with cocktail sticks or toothpicks as well, but it does just take quite a bit longer. If you love this tutorial, make sure that you subscribe to our channel, My Cupcake Addiction. We've got lots of great decorating tutorials, cupcakes, cake pops, and lots more, and we'd love to have you stop by. Now I'm just going to, as I said, just knock the little tips. It doesn't take long for them to dry. You can either knock them off or I'm just going to press them down so that he doesn't have little points in his eyes. Then take your toothpick and we're just going to give him a couple of little eyeballs. Nice point on that toothpick and just dab down one eyeball and the other. Now depending on how neat your little ears came out, so as we pull these ones off the paper, you can see that that one there is actually quite neat, but they might get some of these little air pockets or little air holes in there. So if you want, and this is a little bit optional, you can take that toothpick, and it does just help to blend them in a little bit. Take that toothpick and just run it up those ears. So it stops them from looking so smooth compared to the rest of the pop, and just blends them in a little bit so they're not quite as flat on the front. So there you have your gorgeous little Totoro and the Soot Sprite Cake Pops ready to go. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this tutorial, and as always, thank you very much for watching.